Srila Prabhupada has asked us to do. And you mentioned that I have to make this fast. I'm always writing long homages. Sometimes they don't get read and everything, so I'll try to make it as fast as possible and talk fast. As we listen to the Srila Prabhupada as to how to exchange as devotees with one another, like you just mentioned a few minutes ago, we'll be successful if we do everything that Srila Prabhupada has asked us to do. Last year, I think it was, one thing I remember, you wanted my husband and I to have a computer. And two devotees stepped up to give us a computer. Kirtan Ross and Guru Ross give us two computers. So my feeling is that if we try to, in a loving way, remember each other's needs, if we hear about if there's ills, so just write them a little note, some Krishna conscious note or something like that. Because there's a lot of I think that's missing. I think that can be improved. Even myself, when we went to Mexico, they asked me to cook in Mexico. I'm not such a good cooker, so I don't know where they got that from. So I called Alita Rita, and she gathered all the devotees in Gita Nagari to help go to Mexico to cook food. So the little exchanges like that makes your heart feel really good, and that you're pleasing your spiritual master by having better loving relationships with one another. 5 minutes.
You know that you've set the mood so nicely, because in my own life I've realized that my offering has to be one of gratitude. I began earlier this year going through different books of yours, and from time to time I would call Baladev to tell him I was in shock. You know, most of these books I read as a young man, and you mentioned Japa Reform Notebook. I was just in shock, because I love Borijan's book, I love Satchidananda Swami's book, and I'm always going to the retreats, and I went through your Japa. I said, well, let me go back to Japa Reform Notebook. I said, it's all here. Everything's here. And I just got so excited, I started calling Baladev. And, you know, but anyway, then I started going back through other books, begging for the nectar of the holy name. And I entered a life of prayer. Just, it changed my life. Let me be free to beg and to pray. I want to pray. I joined this movement because I want to become a better person. I want to serve and love God. But I have that side that's lazy, you know, just, you know, commit offenses and things like that. But as I began to go through more books, Copper to Touchstone, I've just been so excited this year that I'm finding such a treasure in these books. And I don't say this because you're my spiritual master. That's part of it, but it's basically that I love what the sages of Namni Sharanya said. When they inquired from Sutta, they said, you've gone through all the scriptures and have understood them. Now please take the essence of them and explain it to us in an easily understandable way, so the general masses will be able to make advancement from them. And as I read your books, and that gave us Srimad Bhagavatam, but as I read your books, I hear Prabhupada's books constantly. And aside from that, you give me something that I've wanted all my life. You give me Prabhupada. And so these books have become very exciting to me. But by reading your books, it lets me do something else in the morning. I start thinking about the position of the spiritual master. And it's just amazing. We all know the verses. Mukham karoti vachalam. Yasha Devi Parabhaktiya. You know, by the grace of Yasha Prasadam Bhagavat Prasadam, Yasha Prasadam Nakatikatopi. By the grace, we know these verses. But the spiritual master, as you explained, is the representative of God. And he's to be accepted like that. The spiritual master is not an ordinary man. So, you know, when I think of that, then my life becomes different. My life becomes open. I'm able to make the choice. Do I want to make serious advancement? And I say now, yes, I do. When I look at the change in bodies, I'm real close to the other end. So I just have nothing but gratitude to express for you, your books, your guidance, and for my God brothers and sisters. I don't want to leave that out because I find that there's such a wealth of such a treasure house. I can look at any God brother or sister that I know, and I can tell you so many good qualities about them. They're loaded with good qualities. But sometimes I become too familiar and think, oh, I know him this. But these are wonderful people. Not only are they very dear to you, but they're all dear to Krishna. So I'm begging, I'm not going to be afraid, I'm petitioning you to forgive me for my offenses, but I do want to be included in those devotees who want to be serious about going back to Godhead. Therefore, I want your blessings. Where it says, Veda Tvam Somya Tat Sarvam Tattva Tattva Nugrahat Guru Signa Shishashasha Gauravo Guyam Apyutam. And it says, and because you are submissive, your spiritual masters have endowed you with all the favors bestowed upon a gentle and learned disciple. Now please scientifically explain to us all that you've learned from them. And there in that purpose, Srila Prabhupada says, the secret to success in spiritual life is to get the genuine blessing of the spiritual master. So I thank you so much for all that you've given, but I'm desperate. I want more. So I'm begging that you'll bless me and forgive me for my offenses.
Please accept my humble obeisances at your lotus feet on the celebration of your Vyasa Puja. And all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Social scientists say that the basis upon which people are identified has changed over time as civilization advances. People were originally identified by who they were, their family, their tribe, their clan, and then later by what they did, farmer, shoemaker, teacher, and so forth. It occurs to me that, Guru Maharaj, you are glorified by both who you are and by what you do. Who you are, you're a faithful disciple of Srila Prabhupada. We use many adjectives, I'm just going to use faithful, I think that's very expansive. You're a faithful disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And as our loving spiritual master, you provide us with a link to Prabhupada's family, which you mentioned in your address. And also what you do. You perform eternal devotional service for Srila Prabhupada and Krishna. You instruct your disciples expertly, especially by composing literary works. The first time I read Bhagavad Gita as it is was a copy that I found in the public library in Stamford, Connecticut. And that was around 1981. And you told me much later that it's likely that you, or perhaps Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, had actually placed that book in that library. Of course, I became enamored with Bhakti Vedanta Swami while reading the book. And then when I finished, I turned it over and I became very disappointed because there was a blurb in the back about Prabhupada and it said that he had passed away in 1977, which was just recent to me reading the book. So I was disappointed, I was a bit discouraged. And my inclination was to move on to the next guru. And then the little voice inside said to me, wait a minute, if you like Bhakti Vedanta Swami so much, you might like his followers. So stick with it. So on that basis, I ordered some more of Prabhupada's books and read them. Thoroughly enjoyed them, but wasn't ready to participate in the Hare Krishna movement. I felt it was too different, too strange of a world for me to enter. I was satisfied with just being an armchair observer. I wasn't going to participate until I ordered and read from Prabhupada Lilamrita. And it's because of that book, which I'm sure others have had the same experience, I found somebody that I could identify with and could bridge that culture gap for me, and of these two worlds. And I want to note that my identification with you began with biographical information. At that time, I too was a young person. I was single. I was raised Catholic. I was working for city government. My father had been in the Navy. My grandfather had come from Brooklyn, and I was rooting for the Dodgers. So I had a lot of biographical, but of course it advanced and progressed to more than just biographical information. I also was moved that this character of Stephen Guarino that I was identifying with was portrayed as I would say, a hardworking member of the supporting cast. He wasn't portrayed as a leading character in the book, like from the Mott Street crew. So I really identified that he was just hardworking, very loyal to Prabhupada. And it wasn't until much later that I actually realized that somebody told me that Stephen Guarino was the author of the book. In reading it, I hadn't even caught on to that fact that you were the author. So I thought that was very humble of you. So I just want to thank you, Guru Maharaj, for fulfilling that purport of, if you like Bhaktivedanta Swami so much, you may like his followers, so stick with it. So I'm looking forward this afternoon to you presenting your volume 2 of your life story so we can learn more about who you are and what you do, and including more biographical information.
But I suppose I could write a postcard or something and just sort of say hi. Anyway, I guess I'll have to unravel that one. Maybe that's a subject of inquiry in and of itself. But that being said, I really want to thank Baladev, for giving me the clue as to call Nimayananda. He was so kind, who drove me up here and wouldn't accept any money for that. And I wanted to give you just, a small donation towards the publishing of your books. It may be out of order. I don't know if we're supposed to do this now, but
Thank you.
that would be good. And I look forward to going back and rereading your books. Although I will admit, I think some of it for me is just maybe a lack of spiritual maturity. Some of the books. I think it was like Poor Man Reads the Bhagavatam.
Yeah.
I think I kind of sailed through the first one, and then when I got to the second one, I just had a hard time, with it, because I don't know why exactly. I don't know why exactly. I guess I guess it's what you were bringing up about before. You're so honest, and you've always been so honest, and that is always been the preeminent quality about you that I appreciated so much, and it is in fact the quality that attracted me to you, the most, and made me feel and think that after a lot of the other initiating gurus that I had been, meeting and seeing and examining, that you were really the one that I wanted to be initiated by because of your searing and often painful, almost humiliating, I don't know if that's the right way to use that word, honesty. So thank you for that, and I guess I'll just have to go back and try and read it. And I guess that would be maybe a good place to start to ask you questions, come to think of it. I don't know why I didn't think of that before. Thank you.
One instruction you gave in a class some years ago, and it somehow stuck with me, and I wasn't even thinking of it. I appreciated it at the time, and but I didn't. I just like I appreciate a lot of advice points in any class, but somehow it stayed with me over the years like a recurring thought in different situations, and it's helped me a lot. And I just wanted to mention it, as you said, that one should, if we should guard against a set attitude. If we see if we have a set attitude about something or a person or whatever, then that can be a detriment, to us. And thinking back to my earlier years in Krishna consciousness, I saw I got myself in more trouble, Vaishnava aparad, different things because of that. Having a set attitude and being inflexible, and not being more humble, and so I just wanted to mention that I wasn't thinking of it at the time when I heard that, but it's something that's been a recurring theme for me, and the interactions with the devotees, and I think it's helped me a lot, and I just wanted to mention that. as an important factor in my spiritual life. And it's also what I see in you, that like you mentioned when you first started talking, that you started with the japa reform, and it was banned in 2 zones, and then you did entering electric prayer, and it's also thought of as weird by some people, but because you're broad-minded and open-minded, not stuck on a set pattern or attitude, that helps to influence other people in that way, and the influence it's had on me, I think it's helped me quite a lot. So I just wanted to mention that.
You've written quite a few poems that touch on family aspects of spiritual life. I didn't write it down, but I can recite one. And I also have a message from a couple of devotees who have sent appreciations of you from the website. If I can be allowed to read those. Or
within 5 minutes.
yeah, sure. The poem begins, get up, friends, disciples, get up, you who are in the clutches of bad dreams, get away from the atheist. Do not say you cannot. Rise from the bones, rise from the flesh, assert the spirit soul. You can, you must. In pre-dawn, eternal love awaits if you will rise. If not, how much you will regret it. He called, but I did not get up. And then it goes, the next demand is to chant. But first, where is your shoe? Grab it and beat the mind 100 times. Then chant and hear with tongue and ear the Hare Krishna japa. Oh, if the mind could, if the mind could hear the holy names, tossing wretched mind, please get it to return to the names. Then join with others, and as the opening doors, bright shining are the multi-forms of God, Mother Hara, graceful Krishna, triumphant upraised Gaurnitai, solid sturdy Jagannath. These are, they yearn for his lotus feet. That was the poem that you had printed several years ago. Jai Guru Maharaj. And then also reprinted more recently in selected writing, not one I selected, but a selected writing. Then the appreciation you received on the website is from your disciple Gopinath, and it touches on this theme of family also. It's not very long. Your Guru Maharaj, please accept my obeisances, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. It's certainly a great blessing for me, and I'm sure others too, that your auspicious birthday falls around this time, December, on the festive season, also known as Christmas, a time of the year when almost everyone is in the jolly mood of making preparations to celebrate the birth of Jesus. Your birthday gives us the true meaning of how one should observe anything related to God. That is, we fast and feast, sing and dance, the true jolly spirit minus the alcohol, meat eating, etc., which we would normally find amongst the wider public. Apart from giving us knowledge and ushering us back to Godhead, you've given us a nice way to celebrate Christmas. The only difference is that we're celebrating much earlier, but it's a much higher spirit. And then he says he's been, I thank you again for your continuing guidance and strength over the years, and hope that Lord Krishna will keep you with us for many more years to come on this, your 74th birthday celebration. I'd like to, so it's very positive.
The Buddhists in Boston, they are very interested on the books, even though they are not the disciples. There's a group of them that really like the books very much, especially about the biography. And we was talking about how you spend so much time in Boston, and recently I was telling them about that you brought the really Radha Krishna deity to the temple, and that they were accepted by Prabhupada and so on, wherever you worship them.
Yes.
So some of them are requesting me, is it possible in your future you can describe about how you got them, how you brought them, where did you find them? They're very interested in science, they're developing some devotion for these deities.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you so much.
Think of a tree and a family or a branch. I think my favorite tree might be a palm tree or maybe a banana tree. But in lieu of that, I was sitting out this summer in the late evening in my patio, and I was doing a little bit of chanting, and the air was very still. I was thinking about the kirtans that Lord Chaitanya was conducting in, I believe, Mayapur, and there was descriptions of the courtyard. But at some point, the wind began to blow where I was sitting, and the trees had leaves on them, and I noticed that each tree had sort of a separate sound than the one next to it. And I thought, why is that? And I thought maybe the leaves had some sort of relationship. They created the sound differently. And it seemed very precious that it was individual. When I think of a family, I first think of the spiritual ISKCON family, but there are families that are based on biology, and they have goals, and some of them are successful with long-term love or success, but most are not. And I don't think that's how we should see one another. I think we should see ourselves as having, I've always thought of you as a spiritual father, and Srila Prabhupada is a spiritual grandfather. And that connection that the two of you bring us is like that stronger branch to the tree itself. And maybe for the moment I could describe us as leaves on that tree, and all of us are connected, and from our hearts we should just say, these are our brothers and sisters, and we can trust one another, to really trust one another in that non-biological way, but in that spiritual way, because we have that connection, and the chanting that we do, our relationship that's all connected as disciples is sort of a strong arena for that trust, because there's very few people in the entire world that you can say you trust. But we could look at one another and say, I don't know his name, or I don't know her name, but I trust them, and therefore I can build in that and have the type of love that's appropriate for God brothers and sisters, a love that's spiritual rather than the biological love that doesn't succeed. So in that way, I'm hoping that maybe that was something we could share together. It's something I just composed, and I'm trying to do it from my heart rather than from what I have.
Srila Prabhupada has said that the best ghosty Anandi is the Bhajan Anandi who preaches. So I'm just very much thankful and appreciative of your Vyasa dasa Goswami, lines on the stone, regular principle, can never be erased. Getting up all your life, practically, chanting midnight, 1 in the morning, commitment to sadhana, and being completely absorbed in the spiritual energy. It's an extremely great and rare example. You definitely are a modern day Goswami. Since Goswamis, for the benefit of all human beings, they adopted these principles, and they were always, because with that, their austerity was very strict regular principles. The result of that they were Gopi Baba Rasaratamdi Lahari. They were always bathing in the nectarian ocean of love for Radha and Krishna. So I find myself in a service the past couple of years, which is kind of not really allowed me to practice very much nice sadhana. I was always attracted to Srila Prabhupada's chivalry, rasa. I want the benediction, just like Arjuna, to go on fighting for Krishna. So at this stage of the service that I'm being asked to offer to the movement is just that, just fighting. Just no matter what the mind says, externals, this, that, the other thing, I'm going to make this thing happen no matter what, at whatever personal cost and sacrifice. But within that, taking shelter on your website is an absolute must, regular daily occurrence for me. And it's by main nourishment. It means a lot to me. And I kind of feel that you were my rock. That's, I have to do the sadhana too, but you're doing the sadhana, and I am connected to you, and I feel that what I'm doing is my offering to you, and I'm very much inspired how you like to depict the Harinam in drawings, and you mentioned it, that connection. But I do pray that I can, within the midst of what I have to do to make the program successful and expand and crack the tough nut in New York City, that I can try to improve my sadhana. I do feel that I've made a lot of great advancements in doing this more than anything else in my life that's there, but I just like to make the lines a little more parallel. Thank you very much for your rock solid example and your shelter, and I look forward to more and more.
I just wanted to take 2 minutes and just express to you how grateful I am that you accepted me, and also the way you, through your letters, you shaped me. Prabhupada is very famous. All the disciples know that Prabhupada, someone would come to Prabhupada, ask him a question, and the Prabhupada would see right through the question and address that person, what a rascal you are. And so many stories like that. But when I first wrote to you earlier on, I was writing to you, and you. This is right after I got initiated, and asking you something technical in the Bhagavatam. You didn't answer the question, but you answered the attitude. You told me in the letter that this Krishna consciousness is not an academic exercise. It's about the heart. It's about turning your heart to Krishna. So you could see right through my improper attitude, in the sense that this is not the attitude to approach the Bhagavatam. It's not an academic thing. And I immediately realized that my whole angle was wrong. All this study is not about mastery, it's about being a servant. And so that helped me so much change my whole life with just that one sentence in one letter. And then another time, just about maybe 3 months later, I was telling you that I'm trying to be humble and something like that. And you told me something that changed my life again. That it's not about trying to emulate some sort of persona that you create in your mind. It's all about trying to find the authentic self and placing that at the lotus feet of Krishna. And then so many of your books is finding the authentic self. Look for that. This is cutting edge Krishna consciousness. Cutting edge in the sense it's not new technology, but it's find the edge that can cut through all the layers. And that's even now. I think some of those things are just now coming out in ISKCON. They're just now becoming. People are waking up to this importance of self-understanding, seeking the authentic self, so you can place genuine attitude towards Krishna consciousness. And the japa reform, that was always cutting edge. It just became popular now, like you're mentioning. And there's still so many of the books that you wrote in the 90s that are, I think it's still going to be some time before the rest of ISKCON wakes up to that. And so, like you were saying, I think it's important for us as family members, and it's our family business, is to propagate, these books and wake people up to them. There's so much value in this, and these books are way beyond their time. Let's jump on the bandwagon now and try to take advantage of them before we get too old. So I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you.
How much I am inspired by your website when you write about your chanting. And to me, it's impossible that somebody can hear all the mantra that you are hearing. I read your japa reform, looking back to what you wrote, and now how you actually practicing your japa. To me, just like it's just nobody could do it, but I know you're doing and others are doing. I just want to tell you that it's just like so amazing. At my stage, I know just the way you chant and the way you describe about it and the way you tell about your Radha Govinda deities, how you're worshipping them. Sometimes you say, oh, this is the same thing I'm writing, but for myself and for a lot of people who mean a lot, is to hear about your sadhana and your chanting, how you get up and you're so eager, you're rushing, you watch the time, and you can't the japa and you want to do it. And to me, it reminds me of the 6 Goswamis. I was here, chanting. And, I just want to tell you thank you and how much it means to me. And a lot of people have told me how they are inspired about your chanting and your japa and your deity worship. Sometimes you write how you're not preaching, you're just in your bhajan, but you're preaching. Everybody who hear and read about it, maybe someone has never heard or seen it, but just someone is chanting like that, japa. To me, just amazing. And I just want to thank you and praise that you always be like that and inspire so many people.
Thank you.
For sharing your difficulties with us. That would include your honesty, and also for the example you are setting for us in your lifestyle now. I really like to thank you for that, because for me, I think that is what matters most right now.
And for the project in which you always ask us to do. In ISKCON, in our ISKCON movement, where we talk about humility, the name Satsvarupa Maharaj always stands out. Humility, prideless. The history of our movement, there is only one individual that teaches us how to cry out for Prabhupada. And the name Satsvarupa Maharaj comes out as the best. Thank you.
Gratitude, and what good is having fortune if you can't share it with anyone else? your Causeless Mercy has brought you here right across the street from me, and every morning you let me bring you breakfast. I carry the tray up the stairs. It is a very, now it's years of the same thing, but it never gets old and it never gets stale. I say Haribo Gumaraj, you say Haribo Sachi. I put the tray on your desk, I put the deity's tray in front of them, and then I bow down to you, and I feel great satisfaction in being able to do this. I can't find anything else in my life that's so gratifying and so satisfying, and I just want to thank you and thank all the devotees who come here, because it's just your blessing that has made this arrangement possible for me. Thank you very much.